Jack had seen many strange things in his life, but nothing prepared him for what stood in front of him now. He was just a human soldier recovering from a mission, hoping for some quiet rest at the outer space station. Instead, the moment his door opened, a tall alien girl stood there. Her skin glowing faintly blue, her silver eyes wide. She looked just as surprised to see him as he was to see her. "This must be a mistake," Jack said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I was told I'd be alone in this room." The alien girl looked at the datapad in her hand, checked the room number, and frowned. "I am assigned here as well," she said softly, her voice a little deeper than a human's, but still gentle. "I am Zyra, from the Narration species." Jack stepped aside slowly, letting her walk in. He didn't want to argue with a 6-foot-tall, glowing alien woman, especially not after she narrowed her eyes at him. As she passed him, he noticed something strange, a small, circular light pulsing just beneath her neck. She quickly covered it with her collar and mumbled, "Don't stare at the third one." Jack blinked, confused. "The third? What?" he asked, but she didn't answer, only turned her back and began unpacking silently. The room wasn't very big, just 2 beds, a table, and a small food unit. Jack sat on the edge of his bed, trying to act normal. But his mind was racing. Zyra's movements were stiff, like she was hiding something. Every time she turned, Jack noticed she made sure her long coat stayed in place. He told himself not to be curious, but the words kept echoing in his head. "Don't stare at the third one." What did that even mean? Third, what arm? Something else. That night, Zyra avoided conversation. She ate something from a tube, then turned off the light on her side of the room. Jack lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the space station. Then he heard its soft sobbing, like someone trying not to cry. He looked over. But Zyra's bed was covered by a privacy curtain. He didn't say anything, just waited. And after a few minutes, the sound stopped. The next morning, things felt tense. Zyra avoided eye contact, and Jack didn't push. But the station's AI delivered a message for him. His medical scan was delayed due to energy fluctuations. Zyra reacted strangely to that, her shoulders stiffening. Jack noticed the same pulse of light flicker near her collar again, brighter this time. Later that day, Zyra entered the bathroom, forgetting to lock the door. Jack walked in without thinking and froze for a split second. He saw something glowing on her back, something round and shifting like liquid light. Zyra spun around and screamed, grabbing her coat, her face burning with color. "You saw it," she whispered, trembling. "You weren't supposed to see that." "Human, I didn't mean to," Jack said quickly, backing away. He shut the door and stood there, confused and stunned. That wasn't just alien skin, looked like another part of her body, something not human at all. She didn't speak. To him, the rest of the day, Jack felt bad, but he also couldn't forget what he saw. He tried asking the station AI for information about neurobiology, but the system replied, "Access to Class 3 species data is restricted for mental safety." Mental safety? What did that mean? He stared at the message, more confused than ever. Why would an alien species be locked behind warnings like that? That night, he made a simple gesture, left her half of a chocolate bar from his emergency rations. He didn't say anything, just placed it on her table. She looked at it for a long time, then whispered, "No one's ever offered me chocolate before." Jack smiled a little. Well, now someone has. Zyra didn't smile back, but she didn't look angry either before. Turning off her light, she said quietly, "You're not like the others, human." Jack lay in bed once again, staring at the ceiling. He didn't know what Zyra was hiding or what the third thing was. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just a simple alien roommate situation. Something about her was dangerous, broken, or maybe special, and whether he liked it or not, Jack was now part of it. Jack didn't sleep well that night. His thoughts kept circling back to what he saw or thought he saw. A flash of glowing skin. A shape that wasn't normal. Something alive and shifting on Zyra's back. He told himself it was probably nothing. A misunderstanding. Maybe some kind of armor or alien tech. But deep down, he knew it wasn't just his eyes playing tricks. The next morning, Zyra acted like nothing had happened. She walked past him, calm and quiet. Her coat wrapped tighter than usual. Her face cold and unreadable. She didn't even glance at the small piece of chocolate he'd left her again. Though he saw it was gone, Jack wanted to say something, to apologize again, but the words felt too heavy, too wrong for the moment. He spent the day working on small system checks across the station, but his focus wasn't there. Zyra's voice echoed in his head, the way she had whispered. "You weren't supposed to see that. What was that? A secret? A shame? A danger?" His curiosity burned like fire, but part of him was scared too. Later that day, Jack returned early and entered their room, but Zyra wasn't there. He took the chance to look around, not snooping, just looking. Her side of the room was neat, almost too neat. No decorations, no personal belongings. Just a single holostone resting on her night table. He touched it, and it glowed softly, revealing a small image. It was Zyra as a child, standing between two tall adult figures. They looked like her, same glowing skin, same eyes. But one of them had a strange band covering the chest area. The image flickered and went dark. Jack was about to put it back when the door hissed open and Zyra stepped in. She froze, eyes narrowing when she saw him near her bed. "I wasn't touching anything," he said quickly, holding his hands up. I was curious, that's all." She walked past him, not saying a word. He noticed her hand shake slightly as she picked up the holostone and placed it in a drawer. Then, with her back still to him, she spoke in a low voice. "You want to know what I am, don't you?" Jack didn't answer at first because he didn't know the answer. "I don't know what I want," he said honestly. "But you're hiding something, and whatever it is, it's hurting you." Zyra stood there for a long time, unmoving. Then she turned, just a little, enough for him to see her profile, her glowing eye filled with something fear, maybe pain. "There's something inside me," she said slowly, like every word was a weight. "Something added, something we don't talk about, even among our kind." Jack stepped closer, careful not to alarm her. "Is it dangerous?" he asked. "To me or to others?" She looked at him, finally, and whispered, "Both," before he could say anything else. A sudden flash of red lit up the room. The station lights dimmed and flickered. Alarms buzzed briefly, then the power surged and returned to normal. But something had changed. Zyra stumbled, grabbing her side, and fell to her knees. Breathing hard, Jack rushed to her. Catching her before she hit the floor, her skin burned with energy under his hands, pulsing. In strange patterns, she clutched his shirt and hissed, "Don't touch the third one." "What is it?" he asked, his voice tight with fear. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with glowing light. "It's waking up," she whispered. "It responds to emotion." He didn't understand, but he could see the terror in her eyes. He helped her too. The bed placed a cold pad on her forehead and sat by her side. She closed her eyes, shivering, and whispered again, "My people were made to be weapons." But the third one was the part they regretted. Jack stayed quiet, letting her rest. Even though his own thoughts were spinning, what kind of anatomy could glow, shift, and react to emotion? What was the third one? A heart, a core, a soul, or something more alien than he could even imagine? That night, Zyra didn't cry, but she also didn't sleep. Neither did Jack. They both just lay in silence, two strangers sharing a room. And a secret neither of them fully understood, but something had changed. A wall between them had cracked, and now the truth was slowly seeping through. Whatever the third thing was no longer just Zyra's burden. Now it belonged to both of them. Alarms were silent, but Jack's ears still rang from what he had just witnessed. He couldn't get the image out of his head. Zira collapsing, skin flickering like lightning underwater. That wasn't normal pain. It was something alive, trying to get out, trying to grow, and she had whispered it like a curse. It's waking up. The next morning, Jack tried to ask questions, but Zyra just stared at her food and said nothing. She moved slower, like gravity was stronger around her. Her eyes darker than usual. Then, halfway through their quiet breakfast, she suddenly dropped her utensil, her hands shaking again. Jack reached out, but Zyra stood up and walked out the door. Leaving him sitting there alone with a racing heart, he followed her from a distance, not sure if she wanted to be followed or not. She moved through the station like a ghost, avoiding main corridors, slipping into maintenance halls. Finally, she entered the medical bay, and that's when things got strange. The moment she stepped through the scanner gate, the entire system shut down, lights blinked red, diagnostic panels cracked, and a medbot dropped its tools with a metallic hiss. Doctors shouted. Backup systems tried to restart. But the scanner refused to reboot, and Zyra, standing in the center of the chaos, clutched her side and whispered something no one could hear. Jack ran toward her, pushing through staff, just in time to catch her before she collapsed again. This time her body burned hotter than before, his skin stung just touching her. The lead medic shouted, "Get her to isolation now," inside a sealed room. Zyra lay on a clean table while alien tech tried to analyze her body. Jack wasn't allowed in, but he watched through a glass window. Hands pressed to the surface, machines around her sparked and failed, one by one. Her body pulsing with steady rhythm, 3 distinct pulses. One matched her heart, the second her breath, but the third was something else entirely. A nurse whispered nervously, "Her third core is unstable." Another replied, "It shouldn't be active unless there's emotional ignition." Jack stepped back from the glass. Heart pounding, he remembered her words. It responds to emotion. Was he the cause? Did his presence trigger something inside her? Or worse, was her third trying to bond with him somehow? Zyra's glowing eyes opened behind the glass, and they locked onto Jack like magnets. He didn't see anger or fear or pain. He saw sadness, heavy and endless. Like she already knew how this would end, one of the guards turned to Jack and said, "You need to leave, human." But Zyra's voice came through the intercom, shaking slightly. "No, let him stay." The door didn't open, but the wall became transparent, and Zyra's voice was now clear. "You've seen part of it already, haven't you?" she said. Jack nodded slowly. "A flash of something glowing on your back." Zyra touched her chest and then the space below her ribs. "There are 3 living cores inside me," she said. "The first is my heart. The second controls breath and movement, and the third is not natural." Jack listened, every word sinking deeper than it should. "My ancestors were changed," she continued, "turned into weapons of war, but not perfected. The third core can create bursts of energy strong enough to destroy cities, but it is wild. It feeds on emotion, grows with touch, love, fear, rage." Jack swallowed hard, "And now it's growing because of me." Zyra nodded slowly. "I tried to keep it still, but when you touched me, when you saw me," it responded. There was silence between them. Then Jack asked, "What happens when it fully awakens?" Zyra closed her eyes, tears glowing on her cheeks. "I either lose control and explode, or it binds to someone permanently." Jack leaned against the glass, his voice steady but low. "Bind to me," he said. Zyra looked up, eyes wide with shock. "You don't know what that means." "I don't care," Jack said. "You're not alone in this anymore. a pulse of energy exploded from her body, shaking the lights, but only for a second. Then everything went still. The scanners stopped blinking, the alarms went silent, and the glowing on her skin softened. For the first time, Jack saw her relax. Even if just a little, whatever this third was. It had chosen him too, and now they were both in deeper than either of them imagined. The night after the medbay incident, Jack couldn't stop shaking. Not from fear, but from something else. It was like her pulse had entered his own, like a rhythm that didn't belong to him was now inside him. 3 beats, steady and soft. 1, 2, 3. And again, he sat alone in the hallway, lit only by blue emergency lights. The rest of the station slept, but his mind didn't. He kept hearing her voice. You don't know what that means. He needed answers, not guesses. Not stories whispered by scared nurses, real answers. But the more he searched the station's files, the more walls he hit. Everything about Zyra's kind to the Niral was classified or corrupted. It was as if someone wanted their past erased or buried. So Jack took a risk. He entered a dark part of the station, far from the main levels. A place sealed since before he arrived Sector 9. There, behind layers of dust and old war banners, he found a forgotten console, still active but running on backup power. The screen flickered when he touched it, old security logs lighting up. He typed in a code he remembered from his first deployment. Access denied. Then he tried a trick overriding. With an old human war ID, the screen buzzed, then unlocked. Dozens of files appeared, marked with red warnings. Project Core 3, classified by galactic order. Jack opened the first one, and the video began to play. He watched in silence as ancient footage showed a Niral female floating in zero gravity. She was younger, maybe Zyra's age, but surrounded by scientists in protective suits. Her chest glowed, brighter and brighter, until the light became too intense. Then the screen cut to black. Subject lost. The voice in the recording said, "Third core became unstable, under stress." Body could not contain it. Another file showed a battle. Niral warriors using the third core to send waves of energy through enemy ships. It was beautiful and terrifying, like watching lightning obey a song, but every time they used the core, the warrior either collapsed or vanished. One by one, each warrior was labeled missing, exploded or deconstructed. Jack stared at the screen. Heart sinking, they weren't warriors, they were experiments. Weapons with countdowns inside their own bodies, and Zyra was the last of them. He leaned back in the chair, hands on his head, trying to breathe. No wonder she was scared. No wonder. She cried in the dark. She wasn't hiding what she was hiding how she might die. A low voice echoed through the speakers, old and cracked. If the third bonds with someone emotionally compatible, there is a chance it will stabilize. Such bonds, however, are rare and dangerous. Human contact not tested. Jack stood up, eyes wide. He had touched her, held her, even made her laugh once. Was that enough to change the outcome? Or had he just started a countdown neither of them could stop? He rushed back to the main floor, his steps fast and shaky. When he reached the room, Zyra wasn't there. But her coat was folded neatly on the bed, and her holostone sat on the table. Pulsing red, he touched it, and her voice played through it. "If you're hearing this, Jack, I've gone somewhere safe." I felt the third shifting again. Stronger this time. "And I can't risk hurting you. You saw what happened in Medbay. That was just a glimpse. I'm not built for closeness. It's not made for bonding. I was built for something else. Don't come looking for me, but..." Jack was already out the door, because now he knew Zyra didn't need to be left alone. She needed to be found, and this time, no file, no warning, no old ghost would stop him. Because her third didn't just wake up for any reason, it woke up for him. The stars looked different from the outside of the station. Jack stood on the launch deck, helmet in one hand, breath shallow in his chest. The emergency shuttle hummed behind him, waiting for a pilot. Zyra was gone. But she'd left a trail, even if she hadn't meant to. The holostone pulsed in his pocket, the same color as the light he'd seen in her chest. Red, soft, flickering like it was alive, like it missed her too. The station's AI warned him 3 times not to leave unauthorized departure. Human. Emotional compromise detected. Abort mission. But he didn't stop. He climbed into the shuttle, powered it up, and whispered, "Override." With one last glance at the station lights behind him, Jack launched into the dark. He had no idea where Zyra had gone. Only a faint trail of energy bouncing between small moons and empty cargo beacons. But he followed it anyway, through dead zones and frozen clouds every hour. The pulse in the holostone got a little stronger. Like it was guiding him, finally, near a cold, abandoned mining moon, his sensors picked something up. A soft, glowing ripple knot, a flare, not a signal, but a pulse. And it was coming from inside the ice. He landed carefully, the frozen wind pushing hard against the shuttle. The moon was cracked open like a broken egg. With sharp cliffs and thin tunnels leading underground, Jack moved through them slowly, holding a light in one hand and Zyra's stone in the other. The deeper he went, the warmer it became. Then, in the center of a glowing cavern, he found her. Zyra sat curled up near a rock, wearing only a thin layer of her suit. Her skin faintly glowing like fire beneath ice. She didn't look surprised when she saw him, just tired. "You weren't supposed to find me," she said, her voice small. Jack dropped to one knee in front of her. "You said I wouldn't understand," he whispered. "But I do." Zyra laughed, not out of joy, but pain. "You've seen the files," she said. "You know what happens next. I saw warriors who exploded." "Yes," he said, "but I also saw what they were missing." Zyra looked at him, confused. They were alone. Jack said, "All of them. They were terrified. They didn't have anyone." She tried to stand, but her legs shook. Her third core was glowing now, not wildly, but steadily, as if listening. "It's too late," she whispered. "It's already half bonded, and I can't hold it back anymore." Jack reached out and held her hand. "Then stop fighting it," he said. "Let it bond fully." Zyra's eyes filled with light, like a rising sun. "No one's ever said that to me," she whispered. "Everyone's always told me to shut it down, seal it, forget it." Jack smiled softly. "I say let it in." Suddenly, the ground shook, not from Zyra, but from outside. Ships were landing, heavy ones. Government vessels, they had followed. Jack's shuttle signal, and they were not here to help. Zyra stood, her glow now rising like a wave. "They'll try to take me," she said. "Dissect me, contain me." Jack looked her in the eye. "Then let's give them something they've never seen before." Her third core pulsed hard, sending a wave of heat across the cavern. But Jack didn't move back. He moved closer, and when he touched her cheek, the glow passed into him for a second. They weren't two beings, but one. Then everything around them stopped. The wind, the echo, the pressure, even time itself seemed to pause. Zyra looked down at her hand, then at Jack's chest. A new mark had formed there, circular, glowing softly like her own core. "You're carrying it," she whispered in awe. "No, we're carrying it," Jack said. Outside, heavy boots thudded against the rock, weapons charging. Zyra turned toward the sound, her body glowing brighter than ever. But this time, she wasn't afraid. She was no longer a weapon out of control. She was something new, something bonded, something powerful and balanced. And as she stood tall beside Jack, the third core hummed like a heartbeat shared between them. "Let them come," she thought. They had no idea what the third one had become. The first shot never landed. It froze midair, wrapped in golden light. Humming softly like a trapped dream, soldiers stared, weapons raised, but not firing again. Because in front of them stood something they couldn't explain: Zira, glowing from head to toe. And beside her, Jack, no armor, no shield, just calm. Eyes and a glowing mark across his chest. "What are you?" one officer whispered. Zira stepped forward, the rocky ground warming beneath her bare feet. "I'm not a weapon," she said, her voice echoing across the ice cavern like wind through glass. "I'm not a threat," Jack added, "and she's not alone anymore." The officers didn't move, waiting for orders through static-filled radios. Far above the moon's surface, a large command ship hovered. Its voice finally coming through the helmet speakers. "Contain the subject, use non-lethal force. Destroy the human if he resists." Zira's fingers curled slightly, her glow flickering. Dangerously, Jack placed his hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to fight," he said softly. "We show them what we've become," her core responded, glowing brighter, not hotter, not destructive, just stable. It pulsed in time with Jack's mark, two energies syncing across different bodies. The officers stepped back, not out of fear, but confusion. They had read the reports Neurals weren't supposed to be able to stabilize, especially not when bonding with a human inside the ship, scientists argued. Screens flashing with warnings. Third core fusion is not possible. One shouted, "But it's happening." Another said, "It's rewriting everything." Zira looked at Jack, eyes glowing with something new, not panic, not sadness, but hope. "I feel calm," she said. Surprised by her own words, "The third isn't burning anymore." Jack smiled. Maybe it just needed someone to accept it. Suddenly, a loud metallic sound echoed from above the ground, trembled. A second group dropped down from orbit, heavier units in black armor. Faceless masks, cold precision, no questions, no hesitation. They raised sonic rifles at both of them. "This is your final warning," the leader said. Zira stepped forward, her energy rising again, but not like before. It wasn't wild. Was protective, shaped, focused. Jack stepped with her, their cores pulsing louder now. Together, the soldiers fired, but the energy never touched them. It bent, warped, and vanished into the air. Jack looked around, stunned. "You're shielding us," he said. Zira nodded slowly. "No, we are." The third core had once been chaos, destruction, something forbidden and feared, but now it was something else. Between them, it had found harmony. Back aboard the command ship, silence fell across the bridge. Then one officer whispered, "We're watching history." The second team retreated, unsure, overwhelmed by something they couldn't shoot or control. Zira turned to Jack, her glow softening. "They won't understand," she said. "They don't have to," Jack replied, "as long as you do." In that moment, the ice cavern around them began to shift. The energy from their bond had seeped into the rock, changing it, not destroying it, healing it. Frozen tunnels began to glow. Old stone melted into clear crystal, and for a moment the moon felt alive. Zira looked around in wonder. "My people never saw this," she said quietly. "This is what the third was always meant for, not war, but connection." Jack held out his hand. "Then let's show the galaxy." She took it without hesitation. Two species, two bodies, but one shared pulse. And somewhere deep inside the moon, the third core pulsed once more, not as a threat, but as a promise. The stars whispered that night from the surface of the frozen moon. Beams of soft light spiraled into the sky signals. Not warnings, something ancient had awakened. Not in violence, but in peace. And the galaxy felt it, even before the reports reached their screens inside the central chamber. Zira stood barefoot on glowing stone, Her core no longer flickered in fear, it shimmered with quiet purpose. Jack stood beside her, his hand resting over the strange mark on his chest. They had become something no one expected, something the old data said was impossible. But that didn't stop the warships from surrounding the moon. 6 nations, 12 fleets, all broadcasting at once. Release the bonded subject, one voice. Demanded, she carries unstable technology, said another. The human is compromised. Warned a third, Zyra didn't flinch. Jack didn't speak. Instead, they placed their hands together, and the entire planet responded. A ripple of light spread through the crust, up into orbit, reaching every ship in seconds. But it didn't destroy their systems. It didn't hack or disable. It showed them images, flashes of history rewritten by truth. The Nyrel were never just weapons. The third core was not a curse. It was a gift. A biological key to deeper connection. It had only turned dangerous when it was ignored, silenced, feared, and now, for the first time in centuries, it was awake and loved. On one of the command bridges, a scientist removed his headset and whispered, "They've stabilized it." Through trust, another officer sat down slowly and said, "We've been afraid of something that only needed compassion inside the chamber." Zyra's voice echoed once more. "I am the last with a living third," she said, her eyes glowing. "Calmly, but I will not be the last to use it right." Jack looked at her. Then to the skies filled with ships. "We're not asking for permission," he said. "We're giving them a choice." Moments later, the fleets received a final signal, not a threat, not an order. Just coordinates and one message: come if you wish to understand. But come unarmed. Hours passed. Then one shuttle broke formation and descended. From it emerged a small group: scientists, medics, historians, all carrying nothing but open minds. They entered the crystal chamber like pilgrims and stood in silence before Zyra and Jack, unsure how to speak. Zyra stepped forward and touched the ground with her palm. A soft heartbeat spread outward, and the visitors gasped as the energy passed through them, gentle, warm. One of them dropped to their knees, whispering, "It feels like being seen." Jack turned to Zyra and smiled. "You changed everything." She shook her head. "No, we did." Months later, that same frozen moon became a place of peace. A station was built not for war, but for learning. Zyra led the first studies on third core resonance. Jack stayed by her side. Translator, protector, partner, together. They taught the galaxy something it had forgotten: that not all power is meant for war, that not all differences are dangerous, and that sometimes all it takes is one honest touch to change everything on the last night of the cycle. Jack looked up at the stars and whispered, "I still remember the first thing you said to me, Zyra." Raised an eyebrow, teasing, "Oh, what did I say?" He grinned. "Don't stare at the third one." Zyra laughed softly, pulling him closer. "Well," she whispered, "you didn't listen, and the moon, once empty and cold, now pulsed gently beneath their feet, not with fear, but with life."